I'm Judy Shaw for NYSE Floor Talk. Joining me today is Amir Adnani. He is founder and CEO of Uranium Energy. Amir, it's so great to see you. Thanks for joining me.
It's a pleasure to connect with you. First time, all these years we've been listed on the NYSE and not sure what took us so long to connect.
Well, I'm glad you're here now. Now, before we get started, a quick note to our viewers. This interview is for informational purposes only. The NYSE doesn't recommend any investments or investment strategies. All right, so Amir, there's a strong global demand for clean energy, including nuclear power. What do the global prospects for nuclear power and uranium demand look like?
We got to start with global population. Global population is on the rise, and there's growing focus on electrification and decarbonization. This is really with the world's need for safe, clean, and reliable baseload energy. What it means is that nuclear power remains a very important part of the energy mix. And we've seen countries, states, companies come and announce net zero carbon targets recently. So starting with the most noteworthy at the very top, the United States, President Biden recently convened world leaders in a virtual summit, right? And pledged that the US aim to cut carbon emissions as much as 52% by 2030, okay? Then you go to China, okay? Their 14th five-year plan, which covers the period 2021 to 2025, also has an increasing amount of nuclear power construction and development as part of that country's needs to create and have available clean electricity that nuclear power generates. So with all this, all these announcements, all these commitments and pledges to be able to meet the ever-growing demand for electricity, but to do it in an emission-free manner, what this means is that nuclear power is going to be in the toolbox for the energy mix for countries, and this really puts demand, increasing demand, on uranium. So you see it now, all of this come head on with the fact that we had underinvestment in the uranium sector over the last decade. There is reserve depletion. There has been very little development in terms of new mines in the uranium sector for the last decade, depletion of secondary supplies and inventories. And so I see much more predictability right now when it comes to demand. I think demand is reliable and robust. There's much greater risk to supply. And what that could translate to is perhaps a period of rising and stronger uranium prices to really help bring on the supply that's needed to meet this long-term demand in the decades to come.
All right, now let's talk about nuclear power in the US. How much of our emission-free electricity does nuclear provide, and where is the uranium to fuel the domestic fleet?
The largest source of power generation, the largest source of emission-free power generation is nuclear in the United States. It's the second largest source of power generation in total. Over 50% of U.S. electricity that's emission-free is coming from nuclear power. It's also the first time that we're seeing bipartisan support for nuclear power, and the latest developments coming out of the White House and announcements with their climate-related plans and policy all embraces nuclear power. The U.S. has the largest nuclear fleet in the world with over 90 reactors that are operating. Actually makes the U.S. the largest consumer of uranium in the world. But we don't have any uranium mining in the U.S. So the supply chain is really badly positioned. The supply chain vulnerability is great. Being the world's largest consumer of any vital energy commodity and not producing any of it in your own backyard would be concerning. But luckily there are developments, and they're quite historic. In the second half of this year, we expect to see the Department of Energy launch a plan, an initiative to establish a U.S. uranium reserve, strategic reserves of it available that the government controls. This is expected to be a $1.5 billion program over the next decade to purchase newly mined uranium from U.S.-based mines. And again, we don't have any U.S.-based mines operating right now. So any program or initiative like this should provide a major boost to the domestic industry.
All right, now, Amir, what is UEC doing to continue its leadership position as a low-cost and environmentally friendly uranium miner?
We're really committing to the exact same strategy we've had for the last 15 years, which is to acquire and develop and mine uranium projects in the US. And we're simply looking to get bigger in that area and to really lead the way higher for US production. Our company, for the last 15 years, has been, again, acquiring and developing low-cost in-situ recovery uranium mines. We looked at the fact that organizations like the US Geological Survey came out years ago highlighting the fact that there was enormous potential, the untapped exploration potential of regions like South Texas for uranium deposits that hadn't been discovered yet. And we really, we committed to that. Our company is based in Corpus Christi in South Texas. We've been developing a hub and spoke strategy down there. Today, we are the only company in the United States who's building a new uranium mine in this country at a project called Burke Hollow, which in fact, the production area we're building there speaks to that US Geological report that came out years ago saying that there's this untapped potential in South Texas. Well, we found one of those projects, one of those deposits. Burke Hollow is a new discovery. Our team discovered the deposit in 2012, and it's now been fully permitted for production, and it's in development. Since January 26, we've drilled over 40 development holes there, building basically what is the largest production area in the United States for a new uranium project. And right within the state of Texas, literally 124 miles northeast of our project are the South Texas Project nuclear power plants, right in our own backyard, right in our own state, could be the source of demand for the uranium that our company plans to mine in the future. So we're continuing to really build and operate projects in the US where we think the greatest demand is going to be. Again, we think it's completely crazy that the US is the largest consumer of uranium in the world, doesn't mine any domestically. To have the supply chains here domestically is what we're investing in. And we're going to be the starting point of that supply chain, which is uranium.
All right, and finally, Amir, you recently announced the purchase of additional physical uranium as part of your initiative to purchase and warehouse uranium. Why did you launch this program?
So we see an opportunity where we can buy the physical uranium and warehouse it here in the US for less than prevailing mining costs. And while we do that, we're also really creating a balance sheet asset that is expected to really appreciate in value based on all the reasons we just talked about. It's a current asset on our balance sheet, and it really will strengthen our balance sheet as we see a recovery in the uranium price, which has really been in a bear market for the last decade. Arguably, uranium is one of the last commodities to come out of a bull market. We see a bull market globally right now for just about any hard asset or commodity. And uranium prices are still trading closer to their 10-year low uranium price than their 10-year high. The 10-year high on the uranium price in 2010 was as high as $70 per pound. In 2007, it was as high as $140 per pound, and it's at $30 a pound right now. So we see an opportunity to buy uranium at an attractive price point. It's a balance sheet item, and it can improve, number one. Number two, it can accelerate our cash flow. When we restart production, it takes time to ramp up the production. We could be selling uranium from our inventory position that helps accelerate the cash flow. And then finally, the uranium we're buying and warehousing is on US soil. Again, we see this really critical issue with supply chain challenges. We see the Department of Energy looking to buy newly mined US uranium. So if we see an arbitrage opportunity where we can sell the uranium we're going to mine from our Texas and Wyoming operations at a better price than what is available in the spot market, inventories could be used for marketing to utilities, while newly mined uranium could be used to sell to the Department of Energy's new US uranium reserve. So we're positioning for that. We have this kind of three-pronged approach to why we're acquiring physical uranium. And look, it's put us in a strong position. This strategy has been, our investor base and the markets like this strategy. We've been rewarded in terms of stronger share price performance.
All right, Amir, it was wonderful to talk with you. Thanks for joining me on NYSE Floor Talk.
Thank you so much for having me.